Tennessee, the win at LSU, maybe it wasn't the most beautiful win in the world, 65-59. But Jimmy, what are your thoughts on this Tennessee basketball team as they could compete for a number one seed? They're going to compete for a number one seed. Your thoughts on them to this point?
Dave, I think this team has a really high ceiling. I mean, now that was not a pretty win against LSU. They made a number of mistakes. They had a difficult time putting the game away. I know this is a very unpopular opinion, but it's because I hold him in such high regard. Zakai Ziegler makes about 2 or 3 plays every game that you're scratching your head like, what in the world are you doing? And he made some of those plays late against LSU where he turned the ball over, made a bad decision, and helped LSU get back in the game. I'd like to see him clean it up. Now, on the other hand, he makes a heck of a lot of great plays for Tennessee. But every now and then I get bothered by a mistake that he makes that he's such a good player that I don't think he should make. Kind of like a quarterback throwing into triple coverage and having a couple of interceptions in the game. Now, I think this team has a very high ceiling, in particular when they shoot well, and they are capable of shooting well. But the other part of that is I think their ceiling is pretty low. Because when they have these games where they shoot poorly, I think there are a whole lot of teams that could beat them. So I think they're vulnerable to being upset in the NCAA tournament by a lower seed. So they concern me with that. I thought last night, basically, they didn't get much at all out of the bench, did they? I mean, yeah. I didn't, Cade Phillips didn't do much of anything. Dubar came in and slipped and fell out of bounds. You didn't get anything out of Boswell. It got nailed on the screen. Gainey hit a 3, but he also missed several shots badly. So I'm not really crazy about Tennessee's bench either. So when they're playing very well, they could beat him out of the country. But when they're not playing well, there are a whole bunch of teams out there that could get them.
Yeah. What would you be more surprised by? Let me ask both you guys this question. Second round exit or Final Four?
I'd be more surprised by Final Four.
I probably would too at this point.
And in part because they've never been there. Do I think this is a team capable? I do. But if you go by history, it's hard for me to project them going to the Final Four versus a second round exit. And I'll say this, Rick Barnes at Tennessee, his NCAA tournament history, I didn't realize this, but somebody had a chart the other day that in the last 6 years, Tennessee has been more successful in the NCAA tournament than any other team as far as the number of wins, as far as the units that you accumulate. On the flip side of that, if you look at Rick Barnes' career, 38-year career in the NCAA tournament, he's 30-28, and I counted 42 coaches that have a winning percentage of 60% or better in the NCAA tournament, all time. This counts Mike Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, John Wooden. That's not very good. 30-28 in the NCAA tournament's not very good. Now, when he gets a 2 seed, he's pretty good. With a 2 seed, he's been to the final. He's had 5 2 seeds, 1 Final Four, 3 Elite Eights, and a Sweet 16. So if he's a 1 or a 2 seed, it looks like he would do pretty well in the postseason. But there's just something about this team that I have trouble trusting completely.
Let me modify the question for both of you guys. Sorry, Caleb. Would you be more surprised by a first round exit or Final Four?
I would be more surprised by a first round exit.
Yeah, I would
because they're going to be a 1 or a 2 seed, and whoever they play is not going to be any good. So it's going to be one of these teams from a bad conference that won their conference. And I mean, heck, one year, a few years ago, somebody got in with a 12-22 record. So that's I would be really shocked if Tennessee loses in the first round. I'd be more shocked at that than if Tennessee made a run to the Final Four.
And Caleb says the regular season doesn't matter. 12-22, Caleb. They made the tournament. Come on.
Do what you got to do to get to the tournament, man. I mean, I agree. I'd be more shocked by a first-round exit. And to Jimmy's point, this was a stat of the day one day before I get to my what I wanted to ask. Before last year, every Tennessee NCAA tournament exit under Rick Barnes, they lost to a lower seed in the tournament, which was actually Jerry Green-esque. I don't know if you guys remember, but all 4 years they made the tournament under Jerry Green, they lost to a lower seed when they got eliminated all 4 years. So it's kind of that's classic underachieving. But Jimmy, can I defend Tennessee for last night's win for a minute?
Okay.
Even though it was ugly. What about the idea that it was like the definition of a trap game? I mean, you just got your biggest win of the season, I think, a top 10 win on the road against Texas A&M on Saturday. That was a really, really difficult win. Coming to town this Saturday, you got Alabama. And Tuesday, on the heels of that win, you got to travel to Baton Rouge. No disrespect to Baton Rouge, great place. But for a late night game against a team that you really don't want to play. And I know the crowd wasn't in it, but it felt the lethargicness of the crowd kind of like creeped into the road team in Tennessee as well as it did LSU, the home team. So is it fair to say that maybe they just, I mean, there was just the classic trap game and they looked ugly?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's good when you have a trap game that the opponent you're playing has only won 3 conference games.
Yeah,
So that helped. I think if Tennessee had played a better opponent on the road last night, they'd have lost.
I agree.
But yeah, and LSU. I mean, Tennessee had a 14-point lead with just a few minutes left, right?
Yeah.
And they let LSU creep back into it, and part of it was just some. I'm just calling it like it is, some dumb plays on Tennessee's part, and forcing the issue, just silly passes. So. Yeah, that should not have been as close as it was. But, yeah, I do think it was a bit of a trap game. And I think Tennessee was fortunate they were playing a bad opponent.
Jamai Mashak had 4 offensive rebounds. Igor Milic Jr. had 4. What did you think of Tennessee's play in the paint? Because I know time is running out, but the only way I can see raising that floor, as you were talking about earlier, so that you don't get upset in one of the first 2 rounds, is not actually by shooting the ball really well. It's by strong play in the paint. What do you think of the development there?
Well, I thought it was big last night. Tennessee out-rebounded LSU 44-28. They had 17 offensive rebounds. Tennessee outscored LSU in the paint 32-20. And I think the reason they did that is offensive rebounding. It wasn't necessarily on set plays. It was putting baskets back in after it got an offensive rebound. So I thought that was a huge key for the game. Tennessee's offensive rebound, their ability to score on a possession instead of having a whole bunch of empty possessions. So, yeah, Dave, I thought that was a huge point of the game for Tennessee.
How big of a deal has it been, Jimmy, that Felix Opera, I think, has really established an offensive presence in the paint? He had 15 points last night, went 6 of 6 from the field. Is he at the point now to where you can actually play inside-out basketball with him underneath the rim?
I think so. There was a time earlier in the year where if you threw it inside, I wouldn't think that guy's not going to score. And now he's showing some moves inside to score. You mentioned he was 6 of 6 in the field. I think you can make an argument he was Tennessee's player of the game because he not only had the 15 points, he had 7 rebounds, he had 2 blocks, he altered some other shots from LSU. I thought he played extremely well for Tennessee. If he can play that way, Tennessee's ceiling goes even higher. And I think he has really improved as a player. He looks more comfortable now with what he's doing. The post moves that you're suggesting, which I think have improved, I think he's turned into a really nice center for Tennessee.